What's up everyone? Today I'm finally gonna perform my favorite technique, chipping. I'm gonna get right to it. I'll need these paints and drying retarder, a magic potion that makes life much easier. Let's mix them up. Deck Tan is great for mixing light green colors if you don't want them too saturated. Some water will also be needed to clean the brush every 5 minutes or so. We need this paint to be fairly light, as we are going to make the first layer of light colored chips. This might be too light. Yeah, that's more like it. Acrylic retarder will make the paint dry slower. This is very important if you don't want the paint to dry up on your brush after a few seconds. Oh, and I almost forgot the lacquer thinner. I'll need this for heavy duty brush cleaning every 10 to 15 minutes. As for the brush, I've been using this red sable Kolinsky from Vallejo for about 5 years, and it's still as good as new. I think it's a 00 size, but I'm not sure because the lettering has already worn off. So, let's begin. Like I said before, this subject is very weird and I didn't know how to proceed. So I started with the most obvious place where chips would be present, the side hatch. This light green chipping effect is just the first layer. It represents small scuffs in the paint job, and most of this will be filled with darker steel chips in the next episode. You can see how the chipping is already creating more contrast between the hatch and the hull. That's one thing I love about this technique. It makes your models look more detailed. You might also notice that I like to overdo my chipping. That's simply because I enjoy the extra detail, sharpness and texture it gives to the model. If I ever made a used tank without any chips, I would consider it unfinished. Hey, that actually sounds like a cool challenge for some future model. No chipping challenge. The fuel tank cover is a great example how light chips can highlight fine details like bolts and also define the edge of the part, making it more visible. I think the support wheels are pretty exposed parts, so lots of fine chips would be present on their mudguards. The underside is absolute chipping heaven. Or hell. Depends. I'm starting with huge chips, but then I immediately surround and connect them with each other using smaller ones. I believe this area would be heavily chipped, because it's in direct line of fire from rocks, stumps, concrete, and other hard terrain features. The more I move further from the lowest part, the smaller the chipping gets. It's important to always combine large and small chips. This way, you can create an optical transition between heavily damaged and unscathed paint. And here I'm adding fine scratches, created by the tank dragging itself over hard objects like rocks protruding from the ground. This makes the entire effect even more refined. Now I can focus on other parts. I'm again highlighting the bolts and the ring securing the ball mount. The inside of the gun opening would be pretty banged up from the machine gun barrel moving around. Some very fine dots will add more texture to the ball mount itself. At this moment I felt confident enough to return to the hatch. I added less chipping towards the upper portion, but still painted at least some to outline the entire part. I often use it to hide small particles of dust caught in the base coat. It's unfortunate. It happens to me all the time, but I don't make a fuss about it. Just paint it over with chips and move on. If you make a mistake or you're not happy with something, you can remove the paint with a toothpick once it's dry. The air intake cover was outlined as well. We can all agree at this point that this isn't realistic at all. But the amount of contrast and surface detail you can create is, in my opinion, very well worth it. And if you look at it from afar, it actually looks pretty good. But I know a few more tricks to make it look even more interesting. This time I'm going to mix the same light green from oil paints. Okay, a little bit more. Now we're talking. I'm diluting it with enamel thinner into a transparent mixture, almost like a filter. Because I'll be flicking it off the brush, it's important to first test the effect on a piece of paper. This technique is called speckling. See how faint this effect is? It gives the paint even more distressed appearance and also helps to tone down the contrast between the chips and the base coat. If there's too much, or some specks are too big, it's easy to remove them with a clean brush and thinner. It also reduced contrast between the green and brown. I think we can consider this a textured filter. Let's now do the same, but more refined. For this I'll use much thicker paint and the result should be lots of tiny chips. I know I already painted enough of those, but I wanted more. This is a great way to add lots of fine chips in a short amount of time. This effect also helps to blend the large painted chips even further, resulting in a more natural look. And as before, any large spatters are easily removed with thinner. Okay, that about does it for today. You might think the model looks pretty weird after this step, and I can agree to some point. But seeing it like this makes me actually quite happy, because I already know I have a solid foundation for the upcoming steps, mainly dark steel chips and rust effects. Now we're getting to the actual interesting stuff. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you mates in the next one.